My next guest is the legendary Frank Dukes. If you heard the show from a couple days ago, you know that we talked about Frank's work with the disadvantaged. We really had a good talk, and I encourage you to go check it out on my website at carsonscorner.podomatic.com. But for this show, you need to know what we talked about in order to understand this segment. Frank talked about how he feels now that he didn't help prepare the gentleman in the 80s named Les for success. In other words, he did some tremendous work with the guy and taught him martial arts and really helped this kid. Unfortunately, ultimately Frank turned to some Mongolian healing methods and helped the kid get up out of his wheelchair. But if you heard my discussion with Frank, Frank blames himself for the kid not being prepared to leave the wheelchair and live a new, positive life. Frank blames himself, and I think maybe he's being a little bit too critical of himself, but that's just my opinion. If you look at the facts, Frank helped the kid gain self-esteem, strength, conditioning, and much, much more. The fact that the kid sort of relapsed can't be blamed on Frank. There are factors like home life, self-esteem issues, and so much else that could take place that are very complicated issues. It's complicated and complex, and I applaud Frank for being so quick to say, hey, I let this kid down, but I don't think it's anywhere near that simple. So now that you have a background, today in the show we have Frank, and we also have someone else he's helped using these same methods that help Les, Mr. Justin Ray Harvey. Welcome both to the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very nice introduction. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I just want to, I'll throw this out there, and Justin or Frank, you can sort of run with this. Tell us how you got hooked up with each other, if you would.
Well, I was approached through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, but an offshoot from that was a thing called Rock for Wishes. And even before that, Justin had reached out to me through a mutual friend, a great martial artist named Kelly Warden. He used to have a radio show. And Justin expressed the desire to meet me in real life, but he lived in West Virginia. I'm in Seattle. We're on two different coasts. And one of the things that made it possible was the fact that this Rock for Wishes Foundation stepped in and just made all the arrangements to get it done.
And we're going back, how long ago was this?
Oh, this is going back, Justin, 2 years ago?
Yeah, actually last year, I think. No, actually 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you're correct. Yes, 2 years ago. Mm-hmm.
All right, give us, Justin, for the audience, give us an idea of your situation. You're in a wheelchair, correct?
Yes, I have spastic diplegic cerebral palsy is what it's called.
Okay. And how has Frank helped you with your condition? Sort of describe what you've learned from Frank and how some of the healing methods helped you, and if you would, kind of talk about martial arts in general, how it helps people with similar conditions. Frank, you can add in on that too.
Okay, well, I want to start with the technique that he used called Chuakan. What it did for me, after he did this massage, I was able to sidestep for the first time in my life with no effort, because it takes a lot of energy just to move my leg, and I have bad muscle spasms to where I have pain in my legs, and for that whole day I didn't feel any pain whatsoever, and I've never ever been able to hold popcorn just by one knee without holding on to it, or it would just spill, and I was able to balance it on my knee. So that helped a great deal. So
that is amazing. Frank, I don't know, forgive me if you explained this last week, but what exactly did you do? Is this some sort of like a touching technique where you maybe touch or massage the leg? What exactly?
Think of the easiest way to explain it for people to understand it is think of a switchboard, if you would, where your body's got all sorts of like pathways for energy to flow, and some of those pathways get blocked, or a switch gets turned off, and then you got and all you need to do is just know the right sequence of flipping the switches, by which to correct the problem.
Now, since
and that's what you kind of do. You work the muscles, and what you do is you try to get the nerve endings to fire again. I mean, there's all sorts of different explanations for why it works. Sometimes what you're doing is by touching the body, you're actually teaching the brain and resignaling the brain to create a new kind of pathway for the synapses to activate the muscle. So I've heard all sorts of different theories on it. There's the Eastern approach, there's the Western approach. All I can tell you is I watched this being taught to martial artists when they were learning the ancient art of called bandajo in Ojai in Mongolia. And the Mongolian warriors, they would fight and ride horses for days. I mean, and this is the way that they would, massage themselves, get their when they had an injury, they would heal themselves. What would take normally 3 weeks to heal, they can do it in 3 days. And then, of course, they take the same kind of approaches, and it's a very guarded, secret technology because, an army that can recover quickly, I mean, it can move more readily than, let's say, another army. So these were considered secret techniques, and I learned them. I was very fortunate to earn the trust of some of these nomads who still practice this and know it. And I brought it back to the United States. I started applying it to people in the 1980s. There's a guy by the name of Mark Schlossberg. He's a veteran. He was severely hurt in the military. It wasn't related to combat. I think something fell on him. I'm not sure. He couldn't stand up. I mean, when he first came into my school, he came in with like a walker, and his body was hunched over. And by the time I got done with him, he was one of my students, got his green belt. He was kicking, punching, and doing things like everybody else. I've had a actual medical physician's assistant come to me one day named Kathy. She's a friend of ours. And she thought she was ready for surgery. She couldn't walk. And I said, Kathy, just give me 20 minutes. And I used the technique, and she literally straightened up, and like Mark had, and he walked out. In Les's case, it's far more severe than what these other individuals had, but it did make a difference in the quality of his life. And so it's certainly a technology worth exploring. I wish doctors would kind of get involved in it, and that's why I kind of bring it up. I'm hoping some medical professionals out there will hear us, and they'll start investigating it so they can help others.
All right, so Justin, he applies this technique, and you sort of you lose the pain in your leg, and your leg, your legs become functional. Did you have? I mean, after this technique was applied, did you try? I mean, did this work better than any remedy that any doctor has prescribed for you? Any physical therapy?
Well, actually, I've had a lot of therapy in my life, and it's helped me a lot. But this massage is what's helped me the most, and it just really amazed me. So these doctors really need to take a look at this ancient massage and start, maybe learning to practice it, so maybe they can help others to be able to walk and to be more mobile.
This presents a problem. I see a problem because this is working for you clearly. Clearly, it's worked for other people, but doctors aren't practicing this. So my question to you, Justin, is how do you get relief, from your condition? Because obviously Frank and yourself, you live really across the country from each other. You're not close to each other, so Frank is not able to do this for he's not able to do this really unless you guys get together, which I know will be difficult logistic wise. So what do you do in this sense? I mean, how do you get relief? And also, how long did it work for?
When Frank did the technique, I had no pain for at least a whole day. A whole day. And on the second day, I had a little bit of pain, but I was still able to move my legs and muscles very easily. So,
Frank, how hard is this to do? Because how hard is this to learn? I mean, for the life of me, I can't understand why a physical therapist or someone in the business of treating patients like Justin wouldn't want to learn this.
It's a sequence in which you do the technique. See, that's the secret. It's the combination. It's the actual. There's an actual order you follow, and if you try to just hit the points, it doesn't work. It's hitting the points in a sequential order and knowing all the combinations. And believe me, I've lost a lot of those combos. I've just forgotten them because I haven't used them as much, but. It's knowing those combinations and how to work the combination that makes it work. You don't just hit all the points or go up and down. It's you have to look at the person, you get a feel for what's going on, and then there's a sequential order in which you apply the pressure, and then it's like turning on the switches. It just opens up.
Right.
And or in some cases, like it says, it can even turn them off when it comes to like pain. So it can even help with people's pain, and I've done that too. I've helped a number of people. Had a couple of guys win fights because they were in so much pain. Got in the corner, did a couple of things. The next thing you know, they were like first round, and they were in the 12th round when I did it. So there's definite advantages to knowing that, and that's really part of the secrets of being a true martial artist. You aren't just learning how to destroy the body, but you also have to learn how to heal it. And too many people call themselves masters in the martial arts, and you ask them some simple questions on how to heal the body, they're dumbfounded.
Justin, how long have you been interested in martial arts?
Actually, I first got interested in martial arts when I was 3 years old because that's when I first saw the movie Bloodsport, and that's when I first knew that I wanted to meet Frank Dukes, actually, since I was 3.
What was it like when you finally met him?
It's undescribable. I mean, it's a dream come true because you know how you have idols like Batman and Superman, these kids that idolize, different superheroes. Well, my superhero was Frank Dukes. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and not only... have you met Frank, and not only has, he helped to improve your condition, but you have a relationship with Frank Dukes, obviously. And that's so important because that never happens. I mean, it really almost never happens in people's lives.
It's a precious gift, and I want to put on the record, if it wasn't for my cerebral palsy, I would have followed in Frank's footsteps.
I really believe it. He would have even been champion. This kid's got a spirit like you have no idea.
Absolutely. And, Frank, it's really, really a great thing what you're doing and what you have done. How would you compare Justin's case to Les's case?
In severity, they're on the same level, but with Justin, even though I've worked less with Justin,
right?
We were able to address other issues like the mental outlook, which I didn't do with Les, unfortunately.
Right.
And so he's taken some real strides as a result of that, and we've gone through a lot of that to where Justin, I mean, he never thought of doing it before, but now he's striving to get a place of his own, and he wants to do physical therapy, to make that happen, and that's the important thing. If you want to really eliminate terrorism in the world or hardship in the world, you do it simply by giving people hope, and not unrealistic hope. And that's how the world really functions. Unfortunately, we all have a desire to live better than we are, and we all have a desire to see our children live better than we do. And if you're a good human being, you desire to see others live better than they do. And that's what really martial arts for me is all about. I interpret it as being a master of yourself and a master of your environment so that you can help others.
What I noticed, and I mean, I saw the Les video, and you didn't really see the aftermath of Les and the depression that he went into. But Justin, it seems to me that you have a positive outlook on life. It seems to me that you took your experience with Frank and really have applied it to your life to where you can go past some of the boundaries that keep other people in your condition sort of depressed and immobilized. So it seems like you've benefited, tremendously from your encounter with Frank.
Oh, definitely. It's like I have bigger dreams and bigger goals than I ever have. It's like I just don't want to stop at one point. I actually want to learn Frank's whole system, and then eventually, years down the road, teach his style so that his legacy can continue on through generations, even through my family, if I have a family of my own someday. I want to make sure that his knowledge is passed down through my whole family.
That's remarkable. What do you think about that, Frank?
As a teacher, there's no greater honor I could ever receive.
Right.
I mean, what else can I say? I mean, it's not and I feel very privileged to have been entrusted with certain knowledge that's, beyond my expectations in time and is long. I mean, some of these techniques, I don't know how old they are.
Right.
But it certainly connects me to the past, and to see it myself as a conduit, so that it's preserved and it continues. That's a great honor, and it's also feels a great responsibility too.
It must be difficult because there's a skeptics of these techniques. Let me give you an example. Frank, we spoke about my brother-in-law on a previous show. My brother-in-law is a chiropractor, okay? And he doesn't believe in medicine, and he doesn't believe in, herbal medicine. He doesn't believe in these type of techniques. He really, really does his best to disparage these techniques. He just believes, squarely in what he's doing. The chiropractic industry is a very controversial industry in itself. A lot of people don't believe in chiropractors, but there are people out there, like my brother-in-law, who just won't even give something like this a second thought. And it's got to be frustrating to you, Frank, and also you, Justin, knowing the benefits that you've experienced from Frank's techniques. That there are people out there that look. I mean, we're all entitled to our own opinions, but there are people out there that are so close-minded that they won't even give this an opportunity. They won't even explore whether or not this could help patients.
Exactly, and I feel if you're not able to look for an answer, you're not going to find it. You need to be more open-minded, and that's what a true warrior really is. That you're more open-minded to different ways and different techniques to find what will work for you and what can heal you.
Now, I want to give the audience just an idea, Justin, of your condition, because when we were scheduling this, I don't know if it was Frank or you were saying that you have to go in for surgery, you have to go in for treatment almost on a weekly basis. Is that correct?
Well, I'm working on getting into a rehab facility, but I've had 7 surgeries that I can remember on my hips, legs, knees, pretty much anything you can think of the lower extremities. I've had it. So I've had a lot of pain from these surgeries, but it's just made me stronger. And what would actually help me through these surgeries and my pain, I can remember one instance where Mom brought blood sport to my hospital bed, and that's what helped me recover really, really quick.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. Is that here you are in a hospital, and I'm sure a lot of these doctors are prescribing drugs and looking to get you on the next drug that some pharmaceutical company comes out with. But yet, a movie like Bloodsport can have more of an effect on you than really any drug or any one of these type of therapy procedures that our doctors really have become so accustomed to. I find that amazing, but that is sometimes that's what it takes. You have to think outside the box, and you have to keep.
Well, it's our own immune system. I mean, look at our own immune system. How it cures us, and so, and what triggers that? It's the brain. So, sometimes just stimuli comes in all different forms. It can be taken in the form of pharmaceutical, and it can be taken in the form of arousal, just visual arousal for men looking at a woman. I mean, come on, it biologically changes them. So, who's to argue what is and what isn't effective?
Right.
It's all subjective, and it's subjective to all sorts of different variables. I mean, that's the reality of life. And if you look for the truth, you'll find it. And that's the whole thing I try to tell people is just don't give up hope. Just, what martial arts teaches you is to endure, to overcome, to adapt, to improvise. And that's what the discipline is really all about. And that's whatever struggle you're in. There's all sorts of diseases, other than physical ailments, like where we are challenged in our lives that are just as much in need of addressing.
Do you believe?
And that's what
No, I just a question that just occurred to me came to me as you were explaining this. And by the way, you make some great points. Everything is relative. Who's to argue one practice of medicine or one way of healing a person? I mean, obviously, you listen to someone like Justin, and that it sort of almost blows the whole traditional methods that we use out of the water. But what is your take on mental illness, Frank? Do you believe in mental illness?
Oh boy, yes, I believe it's possible. I believe the mental illness does exist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's how we categorize it and we frame it. I mean, I know a guy who's what you would call schizophrenic, but at the same time, he's almost like clairvoyant. A good example in my own situation is I was getting ready to go back from Seattle to LA. I took a job position with a very well-known development company there, and this guy calls up who I befriended, and a lot of people are scared of because he's schizophrenic, and he called me up and he says, Frank, you're not going to LA. You're going to meet the most important person in your life today, and to meet her, you got to be at this and this place today. And I went to where he asked. It was like a big concert going on in the park, nothing going on there. So from there, I went to my friend's restaurant, sat down, and that's where I met the love of my life. She was right there.
Wow.
And everything happened the way he said it. When I got a sword from the Shaolin monks, he stood in my living room and said, they're going to give you the sword, and described it and all this thing. And 3 weeks later, it happened. Yet, we look at him and, he'll walk outside and see my mother in the tree, I mean, Is he really seeing her, or is he seeing a vision of something else from her past? I don't know. I mean, we don't know how the fabric of the universe works and how we tap into it, especially after we die. So who's to say who's right and who's wrong, or when we call mental illness, I wouldn't call it an illness. I think we should just call it a mental condition, and that's what we're really looking at, an alternate condition from what we consider to be normal.
Justin, I understand that you're in the process of writing about your experience with Frank.
Oh yes. We are working on a book together. I am writing some personal facts about my life that people do not know yet, that's not public, and how Frank's life and his whole career has helped me through my life to fight to survive, to live my life. So,
you know, it would be an interesting thing for the both of you. I mean, in Washington, D.C., there's something called the Motivational Speakers Bureau, and unfortunately, it's a political arm of the Republican Party. It's just there for politics, where you see a lot of political figures. They talk about, various policy initiatives and why this is good for you, and it's basically think tank speak. But you guys really may consider going on some sort of a speaking tour where you could speak, where you could spread the word about, Frank, these Mongolian techniques that can help Justin. It can help many other people in his situation. Would you guys ever consider that?
Sure, I'm always open
Definitely.
to it. I mean, look, I put myself on the line, my whole reputation, when I was on That's Incredible. I mean, I said I was going to get that kid up and walking. He never walked in his life before.
Right.
You can imagine the look on everybody's face when it happened. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with Les. I told that to the two guys who brought me out there. And Les was able to shimmy sideways into the car, which he never did before. Like he told you, we were, able to watch a movie together like he never did. And that brings joy to my life, to know that I'm actually helping other people. And the proof of who you are and what is in what you do. It's in the fruit that you produce, the fruit of the tree, that theologists talk about. And, I'm happy to share my knowledge with people if it's going to better other people's lives. I'm reluctant at times because some people try to misuse it for the wrong reasons,
And Justin, I would imagine you'd feel the same way. You, considering your experience with Frank, you would feel it incumbent upon yourself to go out, and I think you've even mentioned it, to go out and educate people and share your experience with other people, particularly those that have a similar condition to yours.
Oh, and definitely, and that's what I try to do with my MySpace pages and my Facebook page, and my Twitter page. I'm always trying to, get someone to understand that Frank's methods does work, and he is the real deal.
Okay, so if I wanted to find you on Facebook, what do I do? Just type in Justin Ray Harvey?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Good, because I'm Frank's friend on Facebook, but I wasn't aware that you were on Facebook. Okay, so folks, you can find Justin's page if you type in Justin Ray Harvey, and I encourage you to do so. You can also, Frank, you're on. What are you listed on Facebook? Just type in Frank Dukes.
I think it's Frank Dukes or Real Frank Dukes.
Right.
Real Frank Dukes.
Frank W. Dukes would work too.
Okay.
Okay. Frank W. Dukes. Yeah, that's maybe it. I'm not savvy to the electronic age. I mean, I leave that to
Frank. You're trust me, you're better than you even acknowledge. Believe me, I know guys that can't even participate on a Skype call. The fact that you're able to participate on a Skype call, not only that, ladies and gentlemen, you recall Frank is able to send files on Skype. He could send files. That's something I can't even do. So, I think you're too critical on yourself, Frank.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed learning. I love challenging myself, and I'll keep doing that all my life. That's one thing I guess because I was came from such a poor environment with so little
Hmm.
that I learned to, instead of do this pity party thing like a lot of people do, I just always kind of say, "Oh wow, what a great challenge," and I would just move forward. I would just like say, "Okay, here's an opportunity to do this." I've never run from adversity. I've always looked it in the eye and always kind of smiled at it. I see the beauty in it, and not where other people find sadness in it. Even when I had my two brain tumors, I remember getting out of the first one, I got to meet Max Factor this way. By the way, it was really interesting. Who I just came out of surgery. I had just woken up, and my head's bandaged up and the whole bit,
Hmm.
and I couldn't even like stand up, but I refused to. I got out of my bed and I started to walk immediately around the floor, and Max Factor had the room next to me, and he noticed me get wheeled in, and then he noticed me like walk around the floor like 3 times, and he just like pointed to me, and here comes oh gosh, he played Evil Knievel, the movie star, George Hamilton. So George Hamilton grabs me by the arm and says, "I don't know who you are, but," he says, "my friend there, Max, wants to meet you." And I'm looking at George Hamilton, and I go, "Okay." And I'm actually, we became kind of friends in the hospital, Max and me. I would actually go walk into his room, and he actually asked me to be a witness on his will. So my signature is actually on the Max Factor will there, which not too many people know about, but it was rather interesting.
Frank, I have to ask you this, and Justin, just kind of
Yeah.
bear with us here for a couple minutes because something came up on my other show. I interviewed Misha Tate, who's one of the top female fighters in the world, and she's fighting tonight on Strikeforce in the 135-pound tournament. And Misha was telling me that her and Frank Shamrock are working on some rape prevention video. They actually started production on a rape prevention video for females, and they kind of put the production on hold. Misha's interested in going to like a federal penitentiary and interviewing someone who has been convicted of rape and murder possibly, and she's really passionate about women's self-defense. And you're one of the first guys I thought of. I said, Frank Dukes may be able to help you. Frank Dukes knows a lot of people. He's a master when it comes to self-defense, and I'm sure he's worked with women. I'm sure he's developed women programs. So, maybe you and Frank Shamrock and Misha can somehow work together if you have any ideas for them or
Sure.
something like that.
I definitely do. I definitely do. And I have some concepts that actually haven't even been addressed yet in self-defense tapes. And so without discussing them right now for the whole world to jump on, obviously, I definitely, please put me in touch with her. I'd love to discuss it and participate.
I will. And she's out in Sacramento, which I mean, at least she's on the West Coast. Now, Frank is moving to the East Coast. Frank is moving like here in New York, in the New York, New Jersey area, which is really surprising. Frank is going to be opening up his own school here, from what I understand. But I'll definitely put you in touch with her because I know you can contribute to something like that. It's for a good cause. It's to educate women, and it's to help women. So I'm all for that. Now, Justin and Frank, I kind of want to wrap this up. What would be your summation? I mean, what would be, Justin, the one thing, and you could take as long as you want, that you want the audience to know and you want the audience to walk away with? I mean, what is your message out there for the people listening?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that any dream that you have, that you want to achieve, stick with it because it can become a reality. And Frank is the real deal, and I've done a lot of research as far as the naysayers and everything, and Frank is the real deal. And I'd like to say on the record, that he has nothing more to prove to the world.
Well, thanks, Justin. That's very nice of you. You know, it's sad that it takes something like Justin having to say something like that. You know, in this world that we live in. I mean, it's sort of like a breakdown of mores. I mean, I'm seeing people treat people with such disrespect that I never saw when I was a kid growing up. No one would even dare think of talking badly of others the way they do, so openly and so candidly, and so cavalier. It's almost like, I guess maybe it's the way of this new generation. It's just the way it is. I mean, I just don't know. I know when I was growing up, you know, unless you could back up what you were saying, you never just blanketly said anything, and you didn't always believe everything you read either. You know, you go out and you do your own fact finding, and it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of the world we live in today, where manipulation of the media is king. It's no longer news, but I would call information entertainment that we see on TV. So if I can try to shed light on things and help people's lives by getting real facts out there, I appreciate if everyone would just kind of help do that, who's listening to this broadcast. I would encourage them to do that.
Well, I got to say, you know, from my perspective, I think both of you guys are inspirations. I really do, and I think that, you know, we can all feed on each other. I think that all of us, our hearts are in the right place, and we're dedicated to helping people and educating people, and, you know, sort of cutting through some of the cynicism out there. And, you know, this is very, very important, because people can, you know, everybody has a shot, and people can overcome adversity. And Justin, you're a perfect example of someone who's overcome adversity to the point where it's almost as if you're not handicapped, you're not disadvantaged, you know. And I think that if America, I mean, if we all lived by how you live, and have the motivation that you have, and have, you know, the intestinal fortitude that you have, I think that this country would be a much better place. I think people would be better off. And that's just something that I've gathered from this interview today. And I would like to help out, and I would like to do whatever I can to help you get the word out. And I just do what I can. That's why we have Frank on the show every single week. We have him on the show every single week, answering listener emails, because it's so important, these things that we're discussing. We have deep philosophical, you know, segments here on this show, and that's not something you see in everyday life. It's all about trash talking. It's all about who can get who to click on your website, or it's just, you know, stories like Justin's get lost all so often, really. So we're glad to really be a part of everything, Frank and Justin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, and again, Bob, continue the work that you're doing. I think it's really wonderful what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to do this again in the future. We can, if you guys, you know, do decide to go on some sort of a tour, or, you know, when this book gets closer to a release time, I would love for you to come back here and you know, let us know, give us any more information, because, you know, Frank, you've published books before, so you should be able to get a good publisher out there that's really going to stand behind you guys.
Well, I'm looking for one, so if anyone's listening to this broadcast, please let me know. And I've got quite a few things I'd like to share with people, and I'm back. I'm back to share my knowledge, and back to really put things on the right track, and that's all I can say.
All right, well, we're going to leave it there. Justin Ray Harvey and Frank Dukes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, wait.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, were you going to say something, Frank?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just remind people that if they're interested in some intense one-on-one training, I'm available these days.
All right, we'll get that in there. We'll leave that in, and we'll be back at you next week with another edition of Ask Frank Dukes. I hope you enjoyed today's show as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. Thanks to Justin Ray Harvey, Frank Dukes, and Bo. You guys brought the